A millionaire laughed at his brother, who had inherited only an abandoned car from their father. A year later, everyone was left speechless. The sun was setting over the majestic Thompson estate, painting the sky in shades of red and gold. In the main office, a tense silence reigned. Alex Thompson, 28, stood by the window, his gaze fixed on the horizon. His older brother, Richard, 32, paced nervously back and forth across the room. Both were waiting for the reading of their father's will, the recently deceased real estate magnate, Donald Thompson. The family lawyer, Dr. Ernest Walker, a middle-aged man with thin-framed glasses and an impeccable suit, cleared his throat before beginning to read the document. I, Donald Thompson, being of sound mind, declare this to be my last will and testament. Alex closed his eyes, remembering the moments shared with his father. Despite his rigidity and demanding nature, Donald had always been a fair man, or at least that's what he believed. To my eldest son, Richard Thompson, I leave the entirety of my lands, including the main estate and all associated properties. Additionally, he will receive 80% of my shares in Thompson Real Estate. Richard couldn't contain a smile of satisfaction. Alex, on the other hand, felt the ground move beneath his feet. He knew his older brother had always been their father's favorite, but he never imagined the difference would be so vast. To my younger son, Alex Thompson, Dr. Walker continued, I leave my 1967 Chevrolet Impala, currently stored in the estate's barn, along with the remaining 20% of the company's shares. A deathly silence fell over the room. Alex felt his blood boiling in his veins. An old car. Was that his entire inheritance? Richard was the first to break the silence with a mocking laugh. Well, little brother, it looks like Dad left you his junk. Want me to lend you some money for gas? Alex clenched his fists, containing his rage. I don't need your money, Richard. Not yours or anyone else's. Come on, don't be proud, Richard insisted, patting his brother's back with false camaraderie. After all, someone will have to maintain that pile of rust. Or do you think you can live off that 20% of shares? We both know you have no idea how to run a business. Dr. Walker, visibly uncomfortable, tried to intervene. Gentlemen, there are some additional details that... But Alex was no longer listening. With an abrupt movement, he headed for the door. Keep your money and your lands. Richard, I'll manage on my own. Alex, wait, the lawyer called, but the young man had already left, slamming the door behind him. Outside, night had fallen over the estate. Alex walked aimlessly, his mind a whirlwind of emotions. How could his father do this to him? Didn't he love him? Or did he really consider him as incapable as Richard had always implied? Without realizing it, his steps led him to the old barn. There, covered by a dusty tarp, was the 1967 Chevrolet Impala. Alex yanked off the tarp with one pull, revealing the rusted body and cracked windows of the vehicle. Is this my great inheritance? He muttered bitterly, running a hand over the dust-covered hood. Suddenly, a familiar voice startled him. Not everything is as it seems, Alex. It was Maria, the housekeeper who had worked for the Thompson family for decades. The woman, with her grey hair and kind face, approached slowly. Your father wasn't a man of empty gestures, Maria continued. If he left you this car, there must be a reason. Alex let out a bitter laugh. A reason, yes, to humiliate me, to show that he never trusted me to handle the family fortune. Maria shook her head. Donald loved you, Alex, as much as Richard, but each of you needed to learn different lessons. And what am I supposed to learn from this? Alex asked, pointing. At the dilapidated car, Maria smiled mysteriously. That, my dear boy, is something you'll have to discover for yourself. But I'll tell you this, sometimes the greatest treasures are hidden in plain sight. With those enigmatic words, Maria walked away, leaving Alex alone with his thoughts and a car that seemed more of a burden than a blessing. As he observed the Impala under the faint moonlight, Alex couldn't help but wonder, what secrets did this old machine hide? And what lesson had his father wanted to teach him with this strange inheritance? What Alex didn't know was that this apparent twist of fate would be just the beginning of an adventure that would change his life forever. The days following the reading of the will were a whirlwind of emotions for Alex. The news of the unequal inheritance had spread quickly through the Thompsons' social circle, and looks of pity and whispers followed him wherever he went. Richard, for his part, lost no opportunity to rub his new position in Alex's face. At the company takeover party, he raised his glass in front of all the guests and said with feigned kindness, "And a round of applause for my dear brother Alex, who will surely surprise us all with what he manages to do with his peculiar inheritance." The discreet laughter and uncomfortable glances were like daggers to Alex, who left the party feeling more humiliated than ever. That night, sitting in the small apartment he had rented in the city, Alex stared at the keychain with the Chevrolet insignia. Maria's words echoed in his mind. Sometimes the greatest treasures are hidden in plain sight. What had she meant? Had his father really left him something more than a pile of junk? A knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. When he opened it, he found the concerned faces of his best friends, Luke, a mechanic passionate about classic cars, and Emma, a brilliant engineering student. "Are you okay, Al?" Emma asked, entering without waiting for an invitation. "We heard about what happened at the party." Alex collapsed onto the sofa, running, a hand over his face. "I'm tired. Tired of the mockery, the pity, of feeling like a failure." Luke sat down next to him, patting his shoulder. "Hey buddy, don't let them get you down. You're worth much more than any inheritance." "Luke's right," Emma added, sitting on the arm of the sofa. "Besides, who says that car can't be something special? 67 Impalas are highly sought-after classics." Alex let out a bitter laugh. "Sought after? Emma, you've seen photos of restored cars. Mine looks like it came out of a junkyard." "Exactly!" exclaimed Luke with a gleam of enthusiasm in his eyes. "It's the perfect project. Think about it, Al. We could restore it together. With my mechanical knowledge and Emma's contacts for getting parts, we could turn it into a gem." Alex looked at his friends, feeling for the first time in days a spark of hope. "Are you serious? Do you think we could do it?" Emma nodded with determination. "Not only could we, but we should do it." Imagine the look on your brother's face when he sees the fully restored car. The idea of proving Richard and all those who had underestimated him wrong began to take hold in Alex's mind. Perhaps, after all, his father had left him an opportunity to prove himself. "All right," he finally said, standing up with renewed energy. "Let's do it. Let's restore that car and show everyone what I'm made of." Luke jumped up excitedly. "That's the spirit. We'll go see the car tomorrow and make an action plan." Emma smiled, pulling out her tablet. "I'll take care of researching the model and making a list of the parts we'll probably need." As his friends immersed themselves in plans and strategies, Alex felt a weight lift from his shoulders. For the first time since his father's death, he had a purpose, something to fight for. The next morning, the three friends headed to the barn on the Thompson estate. Alex had called Maria to allow them access, thus avoiding an uncomfortable encounter with Richard. As they removed the tarp covering the Impala, Luke let out a whistle of admiration. "Wow, it does need work, but I can see the potential. This baby will be a beauty when we're done with it." Emma, for her part, examined the interior of the vehicle with a critical eye. The upholstery is torn, but the structure seems solid. "Oh, look at this!" Alex and Luke approached. Emma was pointing at something on the floor of the car near the driver's seat. "It looks like a trapdoor," Alex muttered, intrigued. Carefully, the three worked to open the small hidden compartment. Inside, they found a yellowed envelope with trembling hands. Alex opened it. Inside was a letter, written in his father's unmistakable handwriting. "Dear Alex," he began to read aloud. "If you're reading this, it means you've decided not to give up on the challenge I've set for you. I'm proud of you, my son. This car is more than a simple inheritance. It's a test of faith and determination." Alex's voice broke. Unable to continue, Emma took the letter and continued reading. "I know you'll wonder why I've apparently left you less than your brother. The truth is that each of you needs to learn different lessons to grow. Richard must learn to value hard work and responsibility. You, my dear Alex, must discover your own strength and potential. This Impala is not just a car, it's a symbol of our family history and holds secrets you have yet to discover. I trust that you will know how to honor this inheritance and turn it into something extraordinary. Always remember, the true value of a man is not measured by what he possesses, but by what he is capable of creating with what he has. With all my love, Dad. A silence charged with emotion filled the barn. Alex felt a whirlwind of emotions: surprise, gratitude, determination, and above all, a renewed love for his father. Your father was a wise man, Luke said, breaking the silence. He was right, Al. This car is much more than junk, it's an opportunity. Emma nodded, her eyes bright with excitement. And we'll help you make the most of it. We're going to turn this Impala into the most impressive car this city has ever seen. Alex looked at his friends and then at the old Chevrolet. For the first time, he didn't see a pile of rusty metal, but a blank canvas full of possibilities. Thank you, Dad, he murmured, caressing the car's hood. I won't let you down. With renewed determination, Alex, Luke, and Emma began to make plans for the restoration. What none of them knew was that the old Impala still held more secrets, secrets that would change their lives forever. The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity for Alex and his friends. The barn on the Thompson estate became their second home, filled with tools, spare parts, and the constant sound of metal against metal. Luke immersed himself in the mechanics of the Impala with passion, disassembling and rebuilding each part with meticulous care. Emma, for her part, took charge of research and logistics, searching for original parts and studying the history of the model. Alex, who at first felt lost among so much technical jargon, soon discovered he had a natural talent for bodywork restoration. Hours of sanding, polishing, and painting became therapy for him, a way to connect with his father's legacy. One afternoon, while working on the vehicle's interior, Alex noticed something strange in the rear panel. There seemed to be a hidden compartment, similar to the one they had found under the driver's seat. Luke, Emma, come see this, he called, excited. His friends quickly approached. Carefully, the three managed. To open the secret compartment inside, they found a sealed metal box. What do you think it is? Emma asked, intrigued. With trembling hands, Alex opened the box. Inside were several old documents, black and white photographs, and what appeared to be a diary. These aren't my father's, Alex murmured, examining the dates on the documents. They're from over 50 years ago. Luke took one of the photographs. It showed a young couple next to the same Impala, though the car looked new and shiny. Al, do you recognize these people? Alex shook his head, but something about the faces seemed strangely familiar. It was then that Emma, who had been flipping through the diary, let out a muffled cry. Alex, I think you should read this, she said, passing him the diary open to a specific page. With his heart racing, Alex began to read. September 20th, 1967. Today, Mary and I made the hardest decision of our lives. We gave our newborn son to the Thompson family. Donald and his wife can't have children, and we can't give our little one the life he deserves. The project we're working on is too dangerous. I only hope that someday he can forgive us and understand that we did it for his own good. We leave him the Impala as the only connection to his true origin. May God forgive us. Charles. The silence that followed was deafening. Alex felt the world crumbling around him. Was he adopted? Was everything he believed he knew about his life a lie? Al. Emma began, but stopped, not knowing what to say. Luke, meanwhile, was frantically reviewing the other documents. There's more, Alex. Look at this. He passed him several papers that looked like technical reports and blueprints. Although much of the content was incomprehensible to them, one thing was clear. The project Alex's biological parents were working on involved revolutionary technology, something that could change the world. Do you realize what this means? Luke said, his eyes bright with excitement. Your father, I mean, Donald, must have known all this. That's why he left you the car. It's not just a vehicle. It's the key to discovering your true origin and possibly something much bigger. Alex collapsed onto an old bench in the barn, overwhelmed by the revelations. His mind was a whirlwind of unanswered questions. Who were Charles and Mary really? What was this mysterious project? And why had his adoptive father kept everything secret for so many years? Emma sat next to him, putting a comforting hand on his shoulder. "I know it's a lot to process, Al. But you're not alone in this. Luke and I are with you no matter what." Alex nodded, grateful for his friend's support. After a moment of silence, he stood up with renewed determination. "We have to continue with the restoration," he said. "But now it's more than just a project. We need to uncover the truth behind all this." Luke smiled, patting him on the back. "Count on us, friend. We'll solve this mystery together." As the three friends returned to work, now with an even deeper purpose, none of them noticed the figure watching them from the shadows of the barn. Richard Thompson walked away silently, his face a mask of concern and guilt. He too held secrets, secrets that would soon come to light and change the course of the Thompson family history forever. The following days were an emotional roller coaster for Alex. While he continued working on the Impala's restoration with renewed vigor, his mind couldn't stop spinning around the revelations about his true origin. One afternoon, as he polished the hood of the car, now gleaming after weeks of work, Alex noticed an unusual reflection. Upon closer inspection, he discovered a small symbol engraved in the metal, almost imperceptible to the naked eye. "Luke, Emma, come see this," he called to his friends, who were working on the engine. The three examined the symbol with curiosity. It looked like a stylized propeller, surrounded by what could be mathematical equations. "I've never seen anything like it," Luke muttered, running his fingers over the engraving. Emma, however, had a thoughtful expression. "Wait a moment," she said, and ran to her laptop. After a few minutes of frantic searching, she returned with a look of amazement. "Guys, I think I've found something." She showed them the screen, where an old newspaper article was displayed. The headline read, "Scientists disappear under mysterious circumstances." The photo accompanying the article showed a group of researchers, and in the background, barely visible, the same symbol they had found on the Impala could be seen. According to the article, Emma explained, these scientists were working on a revolutionary clean energy project. They disappeared without a trace in 1967, the same year you were born, Alex. Alex's heart skipped a beat. "Do you think my biological parents could have been part of that team?" Before Emma could respond, a voice startled them. "That's right, Alex. Your parents were part of that team." The three turned to see Richard standing at the entrance of the barn. His usually arrogant face showed a mixture of guilt and concern. You knew?" Alex asked, feeling a mix of anger and confusion. Richard nodded slowly. "I found out a few years ago when I found the same documents you did. Dad made me promise to keep the secret until the right time." "The right time?" Alex almost shouted. "When was that supposed to be? When were you planning to tell me that my whole life has been a lie?" Richard approached, raising his hands in a conciliatory gesture. "Alex, please, let me explain. There's much more at stake than you think." Over the next hour, Richard revealed a story that left the three friends speechless. It turned out that the project Alex's biological parents were working on wasn't just about clean energy. They had discovered a way to generate virtually unlimited energy, a technology that could revolutionize the world, but could also be catastrophic in the wrong hands. When they realized the potential danger of their discovery, your parents decided to hide it, Richard explained. "They left you with our family to protect you, and hid the clues to their work in the only place they knew would eventually reach you, this car." Alex collapsed onto a nearby bench, overwhelmed by the information. Why did Donald decide to keep all this secret? Richard sighed. "Dad wanted to protect you. He knew you would eventually discover the truth, but he wanted to make sure you were ready to face the consequences." "Consequences?" Emma asked, frowning. "What consequences?" Richard looked nervously around before answering. "There are people, powerful organizations, who have been looking for this technology for decades. If they discover we have access to it..." He didn't need to finish the sentence. The danger was evident. Alex stood up, a new determination shining in his eyes. Then we have to finish what our parents started. We need to uncover this technology and make sure it's used for good. Luke and Emma nodded, showing their unconditional support. Richard, for his part, seemed to hesitate for a moment before speaking. "There's something else you should know," he said, his voice laden with tension. "We're not the only ones who know this secret. There's someone else, someone dangerous, who has been following our steps." Just then, a noise outside the barn alerted them. When they looked out, they saw a figure quickly moving away in the distance. "Who was that?" Luke asked, alarmed. Richard shook his head, his face pale. "I don't know, but this confirms my fears. We're in danger. All of us." Alex looked at the Impala, now almost completely restored, and then at his friends and brother. He knew they were on the brink of something big, something that could change not just their lives, but the entire world. "No matter what comes," he said firmly, "we'll face it together. It's time to uncover the truth, whatever it takes." As the sun set, on the horizon, painting the sky in golden and reddish hues, the four looked at each other, aware that they were about to embark on the most dangerous and exciting adventure of their lives. The mystery of the Impala was just beginning to unfold, and with it, an uncertain but possibility-filled future stretched out before them. With the new information and sense of urgency Richard had provided, the team redoubled their efforts on the Impala's restoration. Now, every piece, every screw, could be a crucial clue to unraveling the mystery surrounding Alex's biological parents and their revolutionary discovery. One morning, as Luke was working on the engine, he noticed something strange. "Guys, come see this," he called, with a mixture of confusion and excitement in his voice. Alex, Emma, and Richard quickly approached Luke, pointed to a part of the engine that didn't seem to fit with the rest. "This component," Luke explained, "isn't part of the original design of a '67 Impala. In fact, I've never seen anything like it." Emma examined the piece carefully. "It looks futuristic, as if it were from a much more advanced technology than the era." Alex felt a shiver run down his spine. "Do you think this could be part of my biological parents' invention?" Richard nodded slowly. "It's very likely. Dad always said the secret was in the heart of the car. I guess he meant the engine, literally." Carefully, they extracted the mysterious component. It was a kind of metal cylinder with intricate circuits and what appeared to be small embedded crystals. "This is incredible," Emma murmured, examining the object. "The technology is like nothing I've ever seen before. It could take me weeks, even months, to decipher how it works." "We don't have that time," Richard said, his voice filled with concern. "If someone else is after this technology, we need to act fast." It was then that Alex had an idea. The diary. He said suddenly, "Maybe there's something in my biological father's diary that can help us understand this." Quickly, they retrieved the diary and began to examine it with fresh eyes. After hours of searching, they found an entry that seemed promising. August 15, 1967. "We've achieved a significant breakthrough. The energy converter prototype works, but it's too large and unstable to be practical. Mary had the brilliant idea of miniaturizing it and integrating it into the Impala's engine. If anything happens to us, at least we'll know our work will be safe and someday in the right hands." "That's it," Alex exclaimed. "The component we found must be that miniaturized energy converter." Emma nodded, excited. "If we can understand how it works, we could be looking at the solution to the global energy crisis." However, the joy of discovery was interrupted by the sound of a vehicle rapidly approaching. Richard looked out the barn window and his face paled. "Trouble," he muttered. "There's a black car parking outside. I don't recognize the occupants, but they don't look friendly." Alex's heart skipped a beat. "Do you think they're the people you mentioned, Richard? The ones after the technology?" Richard nodded gravely. "It's very likely. We must act quickly." "What do we do?" Luke asked, his voice tense. With worry, Alex looked at the component in his hands and then at the Impala. In a matter of seconds, he made a decision. We'll hide it back in the engine. If they're looking for something, they won't expect it to be in plain sight." With quick but precise movements, they reinstalled the mysterious converter in the Impala's engine. They had barely closed the hood when the barn door burst open. Two men in dark suits and sunglasses entered, their postures tense and threatening. Behind them, to everyone's surprise, a familiar figure appeared. Ernest Walker, the Thompson family lawyer. "Well, well," Walker said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Looks like we've interrupted a little family reunion." Alex stepped forward, trying to keep calm. "What does this mean, Dr. Walker? What's going on?" Walker removed his glasses, revealing a cold and calculating look. "What's going on, dear Alex, is that the time has come for you to hand over what rightfully belongs to me." Richard visibly tensed. "I knew we couldn't trust you. You're the one who's been behind all this, aren't you?" The lawyer clapped sarcastically. "Bravo, Richard. You were always the smartest of the Thompson brothers, or should I say the smartest of the adoptive brothers." Alex felt his blood boiling. "How do you know about that? What do you have to do with my biological parents?" Walker's smile turned cruel. "Oh, I know your parents very well, Alex. In fact, I was the one who helped them disappear." A deathly silence fell over the barn. Alex felt the world stop around him. "What do you mean by that?" he managed to ask, his voice barely a whisper. "Your parents were naive idealists," Walker continued, pacing around the barn with an air of superiority. "They believed their discovery would change the world for the better. They didn't understand the true power they held in their hands. I did understand. And when they refused to share it with me, well, I had to take drastic measures." Emma stepped forward, her face a mask of fury. "You killed them." Walker shrugged indifferently. "Let's say I helped them disappear permanently, but I made a mistake. I underestimated their cunning. They managed to hide their invention before I could obtain it. And now, after all these years, I've finally found it." With a gesture, the two men in suits advanced threateningly. "Now be good kids and hand over the energy converter. Don't make me take unpleasant measures." Alex looked at his friends and brother. In their eyes, he saw fear, but also determination. With an almost imperceptible movement, Richard signaled to him. Alex understood instantly. "All right," he said, raising his hands in surrender. "We'll give you what you want. It's in the Impala's engine." Walker smiled triumphantly. "I knew you'd see reason, boys. Check the car." As the men approached the Impala, Alex exchanged a knowing look with Richard. The moment the thugs opened the hood, Richard shouted, "Now!" In an instant, chaos erupted in the barn. Luke threw a wrench, distracting one of the men. Emma, with surprising agility, knocked down the other with a well-placed kick. Alex and Richard lunged at Walker, who, taken by surprise, fell to the ground. "To the car!" Alex shouted. Without thinking twice, the four friends jumped into the Impala. Alex turned the key, and the engine roared too, life with a power none of them expected. "Hold on," he warned, flooring the accelerator. The Impala shot out of the barn, leaving Walker and his henchmen in a cloud of dust. As they sped away down the rural road, Alex couldn't help but smile in amazement. "Did you feel that?" he asked, excited. "The car, it's like it has a life of its own." Emma, from the back seat, nodded frantically. "It must be the energy converter. It's increased the engine's power in an incredible way." Richard, clutching the passenger seat, looked in the rearview mirror. "Don't celebrate yet, we've got company." Indeed, a black car was chasing them, rapidly closing the distance. Walker's voice resonated from a loudspeaker. "You can't escape. That car and its technology belong to me." Alex gritted his teeth, focusing on the road. "We'll see about that," he muttered, pressing the accelerator even harder. The Impala responded with a roar, reaching speeds that no car of its era should be capable of achieving. The trees passed by like blurs as they entered a nearby forest. "Watch out!" Luke shouted, pointing ahead. The road abruptly ended at a cliff. Alex had to make a decision in a split second. With a sharp turn of the wheel, he directed the Impala towards a barely visible side path between the trees. Walker's car, unable to react in time, sped past, stopping dangerously close to the edge of the cliff. As the Impala drove away deep into the forest, The four friends breathed a sigh of relief. They had escaped, for now. "Where are we going?" Emma asked. Breaking the tense silence, Alex looked at the road ahead, his mind working at full speed. "I'm not sure, but I feel like this car is guiding us. I think it's time to uncover all the secrets it holds." As the sun set on the horizon, painting the sky in orange and purple hues, the Impala continued its journey into the unknown. Alex and his friends knew their adventure was just beginning, and that the secrets they were about to discover could change not only their lives, but the fate of the entire world. The Impala advanced along increasingly narrow and winding roads, delving deeper into the forest. Night had fallen, and the only illumination came from the cars, headlights and the faint moonlight filtering through the treetops. "Alex," Emma said from the back seat, "do you have any idea where we're heading?" Alex shook his head, his eyes fixed on the road. "Not exactly, but I feel like the car is guiding us. It's as if it knows where to go." Richard, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke. "I think I know where we are. This road Dad used to bring me here when I was a kid. He said it was a special place, a family secret." "A family secret?" Luke asked, intrigued. "What kind of secret?" Before Richard could answer, the road widened, revealing a clearing in the forest. In the center, barely visible in the twilight, stood a small wooden cabin. Alex stopped the Impala in front of the cabin, turning off the engine. The silence that followed was almost supernatural, broken only by the occasional hooting of an owl in the distance. "What is this place?" Alex asked. Turning to his brother Richard, took a deep breath before answering. "This was Dad's secret refuge. He brought me here once, shortly before he died. He told me that if we were ever in danger, this would be a safe place to come to." The four got out of the car, cautiously approaching the cabin. The door was locked with an old padlock, but Richard knew where to find the key. Under a rock near the entrance, upon entering, the interior of the cabin surprised them. Despite its rustic appearance on the outside, the inside was equipped with cutting-edge technology. Computer screens, laboratory equipment, and shelves full of books and documents filled the space. "Incredible," Emma murmured, approaching one of the computers. "This technology, it's years ahead of anything I've seen." Alex headed to a desk in the center of the room. On it was a letter, sealed and with his name written on it. With trembling hands, he opened it and began to read aloud. "Dear Alex, if you're reading this, it means you've discovered the truth about your origin and the secret we've kept for so long. I deeply regret not being able to tell you all this in person, but circumstances forced us to keep the secret to protect you. Your biological parents, Charles and Mary, were brilliant scientists who discovered a way to generate clean and unlimited energy. Their invention could have changed the world, but it also attracted the attention of dangerous people who wanted to use that technology for their own selfish purposes. When they realized the danger, they decided to hide you and conceal their invention in the safest place they could think of. The old Impala they loved so much, they entrusted us with your care and made us promise to protect you until the right time came for you to know the truth. In this cabin, you'll find everything you need to complete your parents' work. The blueprints, research notes, everything is here. But be careful, my son. The danger that threatened your parents still exists, I trust you, Alex. You've always had a noble heart and a brilliant mind. I know you'll do the right thing with this knowledge. With all my love, your father, Donald Thompson." Alex finished reading, his voice breaking with emotion. The silence that followed was heavy, laden with the magnitude of the revelation. All this time, Alex murmured, "It was all to protect me and preserve my biological parents' work." Richard approached his brother, placing a hand on his shoulder. "I'm sorry, Al, I'm sorry I didn't tell you the truth before Dad made me promise to keep the secret until the right time." Alex looked at his brother, and for the first time in a long time he saw sincerity and regret in his eyes. "It's okay, Richard. I understand why you did it." Emma, who had been examining the equipment, interrupted them. "Guys, you have to see this. I think I've found the complete blueprints for the energy converter." They all gathered around the screen, where Emma had displayed a series of complex diagrams and equations. "It's incredible," Luke said, amazed. "With this technology, we could revolutionize how the world generates and consumes energy. And that's exactly why it's so dangerous, Richard added. Imagine what someone like Walker could do with this power. Alex nodded, his face showing a determination his friends had never seen before. That's why we must complete my parents' work, not to hide it, but to share it with the world in the right way. But how? Emma asked. Walker and whoever is behind him won't stop until they get this technology. It was then that Alex had an idea. The Impala, he said, his eyes shining with enthusiasm. It's not just a car, it's a functional prototype of the energy converter. If we can understand how it works and improve it, we could create a safe and controlled version of the technology, Emma completed, catching on to the idea. Exactly, Alex nodded, but we'll need help. We can't do this alone. Richard, who had been thoughtful, spoke up. I know someone who could help us. An old friend of Dad's, a retired scientist who lives on the outskirts of the city. If anyone can help us decipher this technology, it's him. Alex looked at his friends and his brother. He saw in their eyes the same determination he felt inside. So, are you with me on this? It won't be easy, and it'll definitely be dangerous. Luke smiled, stepping forward. Brother, we've come too far to back down now, count me in. Emma nodded firmly. And me. This could be the opportunity to change the world for the better. Richard extended his hand to Alex. Brother, I know I made mistakes in the past, but I want to make amends. I'm with you in this to the end. Alex took his brother's hand, sealing a new alliance between them. Thank you, all of you together. We'll honor our parents' legacy and do the right thing. With a plan in mind and new determination, the group spent the next few hours studying the documents and blueprints left by Alex's parents. Emma and Luke immersed themselves in the technical aspects of the energy converter, while Richard and Alex looked for clues about who might be behind Walker. As dawn began to peek through the cabin windows, Alex called everyone's attention. I think it's time to move. We don't know how far ahead Walker is, and we need to get to Dad's friend as soon as possible. Quickly, they gathered all the important documents and data onto portable devices. Before leaving, Alex took one last look at the cabin, aware that he was leaving behind the last physical link to his adoptive father. Let's go, Richard said, putting a hand on his brother's shoulder. Dad would be proud of you, Al. Of all of us. With a lump in his throat, Alex nodded and followed the others to the Impala. The engine roared to life with an energy that seemed to reflect the group's determination. As they drove away from the cabin, heading into the dawn light, none of them noticed the small hidden camera among the trees, nor the shadowy figure observing their departure from a distance. The Impala sped down the highway, leaving the forest behind and entering more populated areas. Richard guided Alex towards the house of their father's old friend, Dr. James Sullivan, a retired scientist who lived on the outskirts of the city. Are you sure we can trust him? Emma asked from the back seat. Richard nodded. Dr. Sullivan was Dad's best friend in college. If there's anyone we can trust, it's him. After a journey of several hours, they arrived at a modest two-story house surrounded by a lush garden. Alex parked the Impala, and they all got out, alert for any sign of danger. Richard went ahead and rang the doorbell. After a few moments that seemed eternal, the door opened, revealing an older man with grey hair and bright eyes behind thick-rimmed glasses. Richard, the man asked, surprised, what are you doing here? And his gaze fell on Alex, and his eyes widened even more. Good Lord, you look so much like Charles. Alex stepped forward, intrigued. You knew my biological father? Dr. Sullivan nodded slowly, a mixture of emotions crossing his face. So, you finally found out. Come in, quickly. It's not safe to talk out here. Once inside, the group gathered in Dr. Sullivan's study, a room filled with books, papers, and various scientific equipment. I never thought I'd live to see this day, Dr. Sullivan said, looking at Alex with a mixture of nostalgia and concern. Charles and Mary were brilliant, true visionaries. When they disappeared, I feared their work had been lost forever. It wasn't lost, Alex said, pulling out a portable storage device. It's all here, Doctor. The blueprints, the equations, everything. And we need your help to complete it. Dr. Sullivan took the device with trembling hands. Do you understand what you have here? This technology could change the world. or destroy it if it falls into the wrong hands, Richard added. There are already dangerous people after us looking for this information. The scientist nodded gravely. I know, I've been tracking their movements for years. The corporation Charles and Mary worked for, Global Energy, has become a corrupt and dangerous entity. They'll do whatever it takes to obtain this technology. Global Energy? Emma asked, surprised. But they're one of the largest energy companies in the world. They're supposed to be at the forefront of clean energy. That's just the facade, Dr. Sullivan explained. In reality, they've been suppressing technologies that could threaten their energy monopoly. Charles and Mary's energy converter is the crown jewel they've been searching for decades. Alex collapsed into a chair, overwhelmed by the magnitude of the situation. So what do? We can't allow this technology to be lost, but we also can't let it fall into Global Energy's hands. Dr. Sullivan approached an old cabinet and, after entering a complex combination, opened it to reveal a miniature laboratory. We'll have to finish your parents' work, Alex. Improve the converter, make it safe, and most importantly, find a way to share it with the world so that no one can monopolize it. Luke, who had been examining Dr. Sullivan's equipment, spoke for the first time. But that will take time, and Global Energy is after us. How will we stay safe while we work? It was then that Richard had an idea. The Impala, he said, his eyes shining with enthusiasm. It's not just a prototype, it's our best defense. If we can improve its performance even more, we'll have an advantage over those pursuing us. Dr. Sullivan nodded, a smile forming on his wrinkled face. Brilliant. We can use the car as a mobile laboratory. We'll work on the converter while we're on the move, always one step ahead of Global Energy. Alex looked at his friends and Dr. Sullivan, feeling for the first time since this adventure began that they had a real chance of success. Then let's get to work. We have a world to change. Over the following days, the group worked tirelessly. Dr. Sullivan's garage became a hive of activity. Emma and Dr. Sullivan immersed themselves in the theoretical aspects of the converter, while Luke and Alex worked on modifications to the Impala. Richard, for his part, used his contacts to keep track of Global Energy's movements. One night, while everyone was resting after a long day of work, Alex found Richard on the porch looking at the stars. Everything okay? Alex asked, sitting next to his brother. Richard sighed. Just thinking about Dad, about how proud he would be of you, of us. I'm so sorry for how I treated you before, Al. I was blinded by greed and jealousy. Alex put a hand on his brother's shoulder. That's in the past now, Richard. What matters is what we do now. Just as Richard was about to respond, the sound of an approaching engine put them on alert. A black car stopped in front of the house, and to everyone's surprise, the person who got out was none other than Ernest Walker. Walker! Alex shouted, jumping to his feet. How did you find us? Walker raised his hands in a gesture of surrender. I come alone and in peace. We need to talk, Alex. The situation is much more complicated than you think. Richard protectively stood in front of his brother. Why should we trust you? Because, Walker said, his voice laden with an emotion neither of the brothers had ever seen in him before. I knew your biological parents, Alex, and I've been trying to protect their legacy all this time. The silence that followed was deafening. Alex and Richard exchanged looks of amazement and confusion. Could it be true? Or was this another of Walker's traps? As the night breeze gently blew, rustling the leaves of the trees, Alex found himself at a crossroads. Should he trust the man who seemed to be his enemy? Or was he about to make the biggest mistake of his life? The answer to those questions would change the course of their adventure in ways none of them could imagine. The tension in Dr. Sullivan's study was palpable. Alex, Richard, Emma, Luke, and Dr. Sullivan surrounded Ernest Walker, who had just finished telling a story that seemed straight out of a spy novel. Let me see if I understood correctly, said Alex, rubbing his temples. You're saying you've been working as a double agent inside Global Energy all these years? Walker nodded. That's right. After your parents, Charles and Mary, disappeared, I joined Global Energy with the intention of uncovering the truth and protecting their work. But the corporation is more powerful and corrupt than we ever imagined. I've had to keep my true loyalty secret to survive and keep track of the energy converter. And you expect us to believe that your previous behavior was just an act? Richard asked, skeptical. I understand your distrust, Walker replied. But think about it. If I really wanted the converter for global energy, why would I come alone? Why would I reveal all this information? Dr. Sullivan, who had been listening attentively, intervened. It makes sense. I always wondered why Ernest joined Global Energy after Charles and Mary's disappearance. He never seemed the type to sell out to a corporation. Alex looked at Walker, searching his eyes for any sign of deception. If what you're saying is true, why reveal yourself now? Because we're running out of time, Walker responded urgently. Global Energy is close to developing their own version of the converter. If they succeed, they'll have a worldwide energy monopoly. We need to complete your parents' work and make it public before it's too late. Emma, who had been reviewing data on her tablet, looked up. Wait a moment. If I combine this new information with the data we already had, my God, I think I just solved the final equation for the converter. Everyone gathered around Emma, who projected her calculations onto the lab's main screen. Dr. Sullivan reviewed the equations, his eyes widening more and more. It's brilliant, he murmured. With this, we could not only generate clean and unlimited energy, but also neutralize any attempt to weaponize the technology. Then there's no time to lose, said Alex, his voice filled with determination. We need to implement this in the Impala and make a public demonstration before Global Energy can stop us. The next few days were a frenzy of activity. Dr. Sullivan's garage was transformed into a high-tech laboratory, with everyone working tirelessly to integrate the final version of the converter into the Impala Walker. Meanwhile, used his contacts to organize a public presentation in the city's central square. News of a revolutionary clean energy source spread like wildfire, attracting attention from media around the world. The night before the presentation, Alex found Richard working alone on the Impala. Can't sleep, Alex asked, approaching his brother. Richard shook his head. Just want to make sure everything's perfect for tomorrow. We've come too far to fail now. Alex put a hand on his brother's shoulder. We'll do it, Richard, together. The morning of the presentation arrived with clear skies and an electric energy in the air. The central square was packed with people, with television cameras and journalists from all over the world. The Impala, now transformed into a shining example of cutting-edge technology, waited under a tarp in the center of the square. Alex, dressed in a suit Richard had lent him, prepared to give the speech of his life. Emma, Luke, Richard, Dr. Sullivan and Walker stood by his side, offering silent support. Just as Alex was about to step up to the podium, a commotion in the crowd caught his attention. A group of men in black suits were making their way through the people, led by an imposing-looking man. It's the CEO of Global Energy, Walker whispered, visibly tensing. The man climbed onto the stage, his face a mask of false kindness. Alex Thompson, I presume I'm Jason Roberts, CEO of Global Energy. We've been very interested in your project. Alex felt his blood run cold, but he maintained his composure. Mr. Roberts, I'm afraid you're late. We're about to make a presentation that will change the world. Roberts smiled, but his eyes remained cold. Oh, I'm sure you are. But you see, young Thompson, I believe you have something that belongs to us. Your parents' work was Global Energy property after all. You're wrong, Dr. Sullivan intervened, stepping forward. Charles and Mary Velasco never signed their rights over to Global Energy. Their work belonged to them, and now it belongs to their son. Robert's smile faded. Dr. Sullivan, what a surprise too. See you here, I thought you had retired years ago. But I'm afraid you're misinformed. We have contracts that prove otherwise. Falsified contracts, said Walker, revealing his presence. And I have the proof to demonstrate it. Roberts paled upon seeing Walker. Ernest, old friend, don't tell me, you've betrayed the company. No, Jason, Walker responded firmly. I've betrayed the corruption and greed that you represent. It's time for the world to know the truth. The crowd murmured, confused by the drama unfolding on the stage. Alex knew he had to act quickly. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, taking the microphone, what you're about to see is not just a new energy source. It's the legacy of two brilliant scientists who gave their lives for a better world. It's proof that the power of innovation and truth can overcome greed and corruption. With a gesture, Richard and Luke removed the tarp, revealing the Impala in all its glory. The car shone under the sun, its classic body contrasting with the futuristic details that housed the revolutionary technology. This vehicle, Alex continued, runs on an energy converter that can provide clean and unlimited energy. And today, here and now, we're releasing this technology to the world. Emma, who was next to the car, flipped a switch. Suddenly, all the screens in the square lit up, showing the plans and specifications of the energy converter. We're broadcasting the details of this technology to every university, research center, and media outlet in the world, Alex explained. From today on, this information is in the public domain. No one will be able to monopolize or suppress it. The crowd erupted in applause and cheers. Roberts, furious, signaled to his men. But before they could act, they found themselves surrounded by police officers. "Jason Roberts," an officer said, "you're under arrest for conspiracy, document forgery, and obstruction of justice." As Roberts was handcuffed and removed from the stage, Alex looked at his friends and family. He saw pride in Richard's eyes, admiration in Emma's and Luke's, and deep satisfaction in Dr. Sullivan's and Walker's. "We did it," he murmured, barely able to believe it. The following hours were a whirlwind of interviews, technical explanations, and celebrations. The whole world seemed to vibrate with the news of a new energy era. That night, when they were finally able to escape the media frenzy, Alex and his friends gathered in the old barn where it all began. The Impala was parked in the center, a silent testimony to their incredible journey. "What do we do now?" Luke asked, running a hand over the car's body. Alex smiled, looking at each of his adventure companions. "Now, my friends, we make sure my parents' legacy is used to make the world a better place. We have a lot of work ahead of us." Richard approached his brother, extending his hand, "And we'll do it together as a family." Alex took Richard's hand, feeling that he had finally found his place in the world. "As a family," he repeated. As the group shared laughs and plans for the future, the old Impala gleamed softly under the moonlight, its engine emitting a soft hum that promised a bright future full of possibilities. Somewhere, Charles and Mary Velasco and Donald Thompson were smiling, knowing that their legacy was in good hands,